Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Past shows are archived. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. If you have a question or comment you want to send it in, hit us up at DJ@ArtistFirst.com. And now, here they are, the hosts of the show, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And this is one of those after the time change shows where we're all just a little bit sideways to the sun.
Yeah.
But everything's going to be cool. And I am Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And welcome to the Soul of the Everyman show. And tonight's show is going to be maybe a little bit apropos of the side effects of large movements through the universe. We're going to talk about karma, which is sort of a large movement in all of our lives.
Oh, karma. Yes, indeed. We wanted to kind of start it off with just the idea of, everyone knows the phrase, what goes around comes around. And where did that phrase actually come from? And it has a lot to do with an internal acknowledgement that whatever you're doing, whatever you put out there, just seems to come right back at you, no matter what it is.
Yeah, and I think it's not necessarily a short loop. It can be a very long loop, but it really reflects the sort of the other maxim, which is that if you treat people nicely, they'll generally treat you the same. And if you give people a hard time, you can expect to get a hard time back. And even, you'll say, well, for some period of time I had to be tough. Perhaps you were raising kids or having to pull people through a hard time. But that will come back to you. There's nothing more, there's no more perfect example of karma than there is to see how your kids both replay how you treated them, and then unfortunately you may see that they replay the things that they learned from you with their own kids, and that can be good and it can be bad.
Yeah. When you think of that, it's a constant for humans anyway. You look at it in terms of if you understand that you actually have a way to affect your overall life by focusing on actions that are positive, it makes a difference, because many times you just don't want stuff hitting you between the eyes on the way back.
Well, so let's restart this because I think we've just gone off into a sort of a low energy. Let's bring this up to a little bit of a high energy thing. So karma is it's something that probably comes out of the Near East and the Middle East as far as the word itself, but it's sort of a universal thing that we can all understand. As we said before, it's kind of you get what you give, and it can be set off in a number of different ways, but it's always sort of an action taken by you, and it can be something which is triggered and it's within you. But then until you express it, you can feel bad about something. You can think, wow, that person's just awful, and I really want to do something bad to them, or I really want to get back at them, or I really want to persecute this sort of set of actions against these people or whatever. But you have to actually do it. Just thinking about things is not enough to invoke this sort of chain of karma. Karma always originates with an action on your part. Mm-hmm. And then, karma generally has a negative connotation. When people say, that's karma is a biatch, as the saying goes. What they're really talking about is that the actions that you've taken now, you may think, or it may look like you're getting away with them. Hey, you were able to to be nasty and mean and no obvious immediate consequence. But there's that kind of feeling in all of our hearts that somewhere this injustice, this sort of unpunished sin, is going to get, that person is going to get their comeuppance, and that we call that sort of a karma chain. You say, well, you've built up all this negative karma, all these kind of actions that you've done that require the meting out of justice, the balancing of the negative with the positive.
True. And actually, karma, the word itself, means action, and it's come to represent negative action, but positive action is also part of it, or good karma, as people would call it. So it's kind of interesting because this is a concept that is easily graspable. What would be the word? People easily take that in because, as you said, it has to do with justice. And any 5-year-old will tell you that what's fair and what's not fair.
Yes, usually fair being what they want and unfair being what they don't get.
So it's almost like karma was born there.
Yeah, yes. And I think there's also the sort of, as we said before, the feeling that there is a sort of an over-arbiter. Let's say it could be God, it could be the universe, whatever, that balances out these kinds of actions. So here we are, acting on the earth, and there's somebody keeping score. Let's say that there's some universal principle that's keeping score, that you have gone too far down into the negative, so there must be something to balance that in your life. The people that you've affected negatively should get a positive benefit somehow. That your negative actions should then result in you being brought back, given some sort of a just punishment for those negative actions. And similarly, we say, pay it forward. That's the phrase that people use. You do something and you say, I don't see the benefit of this right now. And people even talk about it, in the terms of finances, investing. You're putting something into something that doesn't look like it necessarily will benefit you today, but you feel that the investment of your time and your energy and your love and your patience and whatever not is going to come back to you. And oftentimes it's quantified, Margaret. The people will say, well, the wrong things you do come back to you 10 times worse, or the good things that you do are going to pay off 100-fold. So there's sort of these apocryphal, sort of proverbial quantifications of this force that's been noticed really throughout human history, and in almost every culture. They have this concept, call it karma. We call it karma. We borrowed the word from Sanskrit, I guess. But they have this kind of universal principle, like in the Greek mythology, there was a god that was in charge of balancing fate and kind of making sure that you didn't get too far off into the negative without something positive coming to the people you were doing bad things to, or similarly, that you wouldn't get too good a fortune. It was like, wow, everything is going out great. Well, watch out for the balancer of fate, because something bad's going to happen,
That's true. There was a goddess, I thought, that did that. Who balanced fate, or balanced benefits.
Yeah, it just the whole idea was that there was a center, in essence, about which both good and negative, positive and negative things would be perturbing. So you would be, here's neutral, everything's just hunky dory, and then something really good happens to you, and then the old Italian and Mediterranean peoples would say, oh, don't watch out, if something really good happens, something bad's coming, because it was
the nothing's perfect.
Yeah. Or
something has got to have something just a little bit off for it to be, without it being cursed by something out from the outside. I remember that.
The evil eye too.
Yeah.
The whole idea was, if something good they would.
If it was perfect, it would draw the evil eye.
It would draw the evil eye. And that's the same sort of thing. You say, well, things are going so well, something bad. This is a feeling that we have as humans, throughout all culture. Something goes really well, you think, well, man, this is going a little too well, it's too quiet in here. Or similarly, if things have just been going so terribly in your life and everything is bleak and black, there's this specter of hope in the back of your head. So, well, it can't go on like this forever. There's got to be something to balance this out.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's just basic human nature. You understand that it can't be all one way or the other because you haven't experienced it that way. Your experience has always been this constant trying to find the center ground where you can walk. But it's also interesting because the idea of having a positive karma, meaning that you are choosing action or choosing words that are leading to a more positive state, that is an internal discipline. Because the internal discipline of the West actually has always been Murphy's Law.
Exactly.
Seriously, that's all they look at is Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
And it takes an internal decision to say, oh, wait a minute, I understand that this can happen, but I choose to look here. I'm looking up. I'm not looking it down. Instead of always looking for the next thing that you can lament about. And some people actually, that's their nature. They're always very up and positive and, wonderful when you can do that. And then you got the rest of us.
Well, let's abstract that for a second because that's actually a very salient point. If you look at the Eastern cultures and you inspect karma directly, there really isn't just the feeling that good things happen and then they're balanced by bad things, and that the difference between those two concepts is, and you just said it, is that in one case you're basically being acted upon by the fortunes of, by the winds of fortune. If it blows bad for a while, it's got to blow good. But you have no kind of, you have no skin in that game. You can't really influence it. There are external, godly or spiritual influences that come and kind of grant you this boon or take away this boon, but you're just kind of, being bobbing along in this giant current. And then in the East, in the Near East and in the East, there's really the idea of controlling your fate, in essence, that instead of just saying, well, stuff happens, stuff happens, you say, well, no, stuff doesn't just happen. You say, I have the ability to choose, and I control my fate by saying I choose right action, I choose right karma, and therefore right karma, the benefit of right karma will return to me. And so to the extent that I continue to choose the right karma, I will always get the benefit back. There won't be an imbalance. There will be a movement, a purposeful movement towards a state of good karma.
Right. Or good action.
Good action.
If you choose that, but that takes discipline.
It's not easy.
No, because it usually means that your perspective understands it's not you-centered.
Yeah.
You have to be in a state of compassion for another to be able to continually choose a good action. And many times, that's just too much effort for people. In fact, one problem they had was speaking to one of the Tibetan monks, and he said that many times their people's mindset trying to discipline all this, since they believe that they have reincarnation. Well, I can't get it this lifetime. I'll just wait till the next time and work on that.
Right, mañana.
Yeah.
Man lifa.
Next round.
Next part of. But there's something there even before that. That's a wonderful. We should explore that a little bit. But the whole idea again of the discipline of right action goes to the sevenfold path, and the enlightened being, the person who is on the sevenfold path and is trying to do and control their karma and do right action, realizes at some point, I'm not sure what point, you'll probably know the exact point on the sevenfold path, that it's no longer just about what benefits you personally. It becomes extra personal. It becomes the action I take may not appear to provide me any tangible benefit, but yet it is the right action, and I will accrue the right karma from it. And it becomes both a perception of where you are karmically, and where am I? I'm moving in this direction, but I'm here. And that the next correct action, the next right action I must take becomes apparent. It almost reveals itself through the discipline.
Yeah, the Eightfold Path.
That's right. The Sevenfold Path is right before that one. They were going along and they said, geez, we need one more fold in this path. Man, I'm so stupid.
Stop. Yeah,
that you folks knew that it was the Eightfold Path, didn't you? Go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
He's going off. And I wasn't prepared to talk about Buddhism tonight, but yeah, it has to do with right action and right mindset and right. And it's an acknowledgement of there is an internal good way to bring your life into that clarity and that being state. It's not enough just to be able to, right meditation was another one that they had in there. And Buddhism in general is a very mental disciplined kind of path, trying to, quiet the mind so that you may begin to enter into all of this. And it's not for everyone.
Mm-mm.
There are many, many ways that your internal would be able to learn, because it's a constant learning thing, until you're able to make the connection of what it means to embrace God as an all-encompassing, all-loving, and that's beyond our human boxes that we put together, because we keep trying to say, well, the ongoing fight of, well, it's just a different path to the top of the mountain kind of thing. Okay? But all that is arguments in the mental plane.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the full encompassing of what love and God actually are, and what aspect of you is actually capable of making that connection and holding that energy, frequency, love. I'm losing words here.
Well, frequency probably.
In your physical body. I mean, it is possible. It is more than possible for this to happen. And as far as I know, Jesus, the Christ, in that Christed form, was able to enter into that. The Buddha and the Buddhic form has to do with, how do I say this? Focus was more on the upper chakras, the third eye, the throat, and then it touched into the heart, whereas Christ was doing heart and into the ground, which is kind of interesting if you think about it, because of the way their approach is to humanity. Man is a very complex being, very complex.
Very complex and very confused.
Well, yeah, very confused. People trying to understand themselves, everyone gets confused because they're concentrating on this mental box that they're using to try to understand themselves, and have not yet embraced the concept that you are a mystery.
Yeah, and well, I think we're getting a little far afield, but in essence, one of the beginning steps that people can take is to practice the discipline which provides you the ability to know where you're going karmically. That whole. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean that has a lot to do, knowing where you're going karmically, kind of thing. That appeals to someone who wants to control their life.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that's all come into our culture through that same sort of Eastern Buddhism, the Buddhist discipline portion of it. I mean, karma is really more of a Hindu concept, but the idea of controlling one's, moving through a very mental path towards a specific goal of enlightenment, appeals to people, appeals to them at their very little accountant souls of keeping track of things, and I'm checking off boxes, and I'm making sure that I'm going, and then next I'm going to do the next step of enlightenment, and then the next step of enlightenment, and then the next step of enlightenment.
Exactly that. They're basically kind of like, okay, if I do this next, it's like, okay, this is the next rung on the enlightenment ladder.
Yes.
I'm going to climb this and this and this.
Yes.
And actually, in religions in general, they all have some kind of holiness ladder that they climb.
Yes.
To get closer and closer to God.
Right.
And what I find fascinating is when they get to the very top of that particular ladder, will they be willing to let it go?
Oh, no. The ladder's everything. There's nothing wrong with the program. Never speak ill of the program. The program is sound.
and that is where we as humans, we get stuck because we think we've figured out a way to climb up the ladder of enlightenment, of holiness, of I'm evolving, I'm.
Right. All
but
times.
You get to the top of the rungs.
Right, and the last rung says, "Let go."
You have to take that step into the unknown, because who you are is a mystery.
Yes.
So it takes courage to do that.
Right.
And what I find fascinating is that many of the religions that are presented there, they are not talking about taking heart or taking courage to take a step into that vastness of the unknown. Most of the people that are entranced into having that next rung and checking off the box saying, I got this, they do not want to say, okay, now I can be with God.
Well, and that is the goal. I mean, it truly, when you talk about the goal of enlightenment, it is letting go at the end. And sort of in Western religions, in Christian religions, it's also that's the reaching the end of oneself. We talked about that a few times, and we always seem to get to the end of ourselves somewhere around the middle of the first half hour. What we do is we as human beings realize that whatever ladder we're on, and it could be the karma ladder, it could be the 7 steps to success, or the Eightfold Path. We get to, these are all human systems. These are all kind of abstracts of getting there. They give us a very necessary amount of discipline. Because without discipline, it's all chaos. They give us a lot of beneficial, training. But when you get up to the point where you're now at the, to use another analogy, you're all the way on the top of the high dive, you're at the end of the diving board, and guess what? There's no water in the pool, and yet you still have to drop off. In fact, you have to jump, not only knowing that there's no water in the pool, that you may not be a pool. There's nothing, there are no rungs beyond, once you reach the end of the ladders that we've constructed to get there, whatever they are, and you get to that top rung, you realize that human beings can't create the ladder into the next rung. You have to do it yourself. It's an individual choice to go beyond yourself, to reach the end of yourself and go beyond yourself.
And that's when you decide that you need help.
You do.
You need to have a level of acknowledgement that there's something so vast out there.
Right.
That all my ladders are not going to help me reach that space.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the first rungs on that ladder is what we're really talking about tonight. So we've gone way off, and we're way at the top of the ladder, and we're way at the bottom of the half of the hour. So let's take a little break, go back to the studio, regroup, and we'll come back and talk some more about karma.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the 4th Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
Taking God on Patrol is a first-person account of the world of law enforcement from the perspective of a Christian police officer in the 4th largest city in America. From speeding car chases to the crossing of the thin blue line, author Mark S. Cariner seeks to find God's biblical truth in a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement. And check out Mark's newest book, The Tactical Heart. Both are available at Amazon.com.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the Artist First Radio Network. You can always send your questions and comments in to dj@artistfirst.com, and all past shows are archived. You can find them at artistfirst.com. Now back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, C-Man. And we're climbing our way out of this hole. But no, at tonight's show, in the first half hour, we were talking a little bit about the concept of karma, and everyone's familiar with it. And I think it's become such a part of our popular culture that it's fallen into sort of a slang lexicon. You can find jokes about karma, and you can find, like I said in the last half hour, karma is an itch, and the whole idea of this sort of balancing of your actions, whatever they may be, that your good actions will bring you good, and your bad actions will bring you some sort of bad, or some sort of comeuppance, is extremely human. And then we went off a little bit into sort of the disciplines which have arisen out of humans trying to find their way to enlightenment. But we kind of back that up a little bit, back into this sort of I guess more mundane concept. There are certainly there are certain mechanisms you can import into your life. If you don't understand or don't want to follow karma, you can certainly follow the sort of the basic one, which is this golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if you turn it around and say what you do to others is what they will do to you, because that's closer to the facts. If you if you screw somebody, they're going to try to screw you back, because that's kind of the revenge, like, hey man, I'm going to get that guy back. So karma is sort of self-reinforcing, Margaret. It's sort of if I do bad to you, you're going to hold a grudge, and you're going to come back and try to get even with me.
Well, when they were beginning to make laws to run a civilization, you remember Hammurabi's code,
mm-hmm.
an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That was so that there wasn't complete mayhem happening.
Right.
When one person winds up punching someone and taking a tooth out, instead of having a whole gang come by and try to wreak revenge on this other group, they were trying to be civil and saying, okay, well, if you knock this person's tooth out, we have to knock a tooth out of you.
Right, and it was an idea of, and that the central point of that is justice. You have the Mosaic Law, you have Hammurabi's Code, you have many, many different sort of, and let's say that it's a very sort of it's not nuanced justice. Okay, it's really, you lose a toe, I'm going to take your toe. It's really a life for life. It's really what it comes down to. It's we are all equal. It's very egalitarian, and that my finger, were you to injure it and take my finger, you've cost me the light of my world. You cost me the one digit on my hand, so that you owe me a digit of yours. And then there was the nuance came in to say that, well, okay, maybe I don't want to give up my finger, but I have to give up something, it's something of equal value. So it was very, very much a trading of offenses in this case. The offense that I would commit against you, first of all, lovely Hammurabi, the idea was to have an impartial arbiter or judge who would say that, yes, the offense was committed, and it was committed by this person. So now we have established that there was a problem, and that we have established who caused the problem. So there's we go through that whole exercise. And then you have to say, well, this was the injury done. My kneecap is gone. Completely no kneecap. And then the judge has to say, well, on my scale of kneecap to equivalence, that's worth 2 fingers, a thumb, or a big toe. You choose, or the kneecap, So the idea being that it became a very sort of almost economic system of justice. Where,
well, it wasn't mass death is what they were trying to avoid.
Right. Wasn't your clan versus my clan till we're all dead.
Because that's the other thing that humans have is if someone attacks a member of your family, the whole family rises up and wants to kill the person that did it.
Right. And instead of it escalating, which is I took your kneecap. Well, I'm going to they put one of yours in the morgue. You put one of yours in the this, and we put one of theirs in the morgue. Go back. It goes. And you end up Hatfields and McCoys, right?
Exactly. Exactly. But I mean, that's basic to human nature. That was the whole idea, was to stem the tide of death and destruction.
We shall stem the tide of death. Yeah, exactly, exactly, because these vendettas, these kind of blood feuds, would be the result of something where you didn't have a controlling sort of impartial controlling.
And I'm going to refer it back to the concept of karma or action. If an action was taken that was negative against one, then it generates the action that's supposed to be taken against the person that had caused harm. It's the same level. It has nothing to do with being able to bring it a level higher. Okay, this is where the concept of this particular type of justice, that was like the first rung on the ladder. Because you're looking at it going, okay, now wait a minute. We need a way to acknowledge that this was wrong and to make it right somehow.
Right.
Without perpetuating. See, this is where the karma comes in, the action, that particular destructive, negative action. You don't want to keep doing it. I mean, you see it on Facebook, my gosh, when one person puts one negative comment and then there's all these other comments flying and everything negative, and it's just this, like, who, really?
Right. And that's, there's two wonderful points there. I want to just go back. You mentioned that the idea of not letting karma, in essence, negative karma or positive, but negative is the one people are concerned about, grow. Because the difference between karma, which is balance of negative action with positive action, versus vengeance, which is, like you said, you put one, your little negative thing sets off an avalanche of negative back. So it's an unbalanced response, a disproportionate response.
And what I'd like to point out is the fact that when you put that little negative action out there, and it comes back to you, reflected back to you, multiplied. Okay, that is the actual mechanism that happens for a human being. So wouldn't you rather put the reverse in order so that you have this avalanche of good things happening to you?
Yes.
I mean, if you can just look at your own basic nature and understand that at your core, this happens. This is what happens. So that phrase of, poop happens, right?
It does.
Yes.
Yes.
And it avalanches, an avalanche of poop. So
it's like a poop mountain.
That's right.
Yeah.
So couldn't we go the other direction, please?
Like unpoop? Well, no. I mean, we're just the idea of, well, I think your point is exactly well taken. Is that we have vengeful souls. We have to look at ourselves, with clear eyes and know that when somebody offends us, we want to get them back and make them pay right away.
Yeah, but the reverse is also true. When someone does something good for us, we want to shower that person with gifts.
Yes.
Okay? It's not just this one negative, okay, we're vengeful. Yeah, my point being that inside of you, you have the capability of amplifying what you choose.
Yes. And
so if you choose vengeance, then vengeance is going to come back. It's like every bad,
Christmas special.
What?
Nothing. It's like exactly that, and that comes back to again to the concept of karma, because and really the concept of the expression of karma, in the sense that you give offense, you have within your heart something that you wish to do that's negative or positive, and then you verbalize it, you bring it into action, you then incur the karma, positive or negative. And then there's the reflection back, whether it's a reflection, because we are all the same in that regard. You do something good for somebody, and you see these silly commercials where somebody holds a door for somebody, and then that person picks up something for somebody else, and then it goes and use random acts of kindness. But in fact, the reason that's effective is it's true. If you smile and do something nice for somebody, that's that whole pay it forward kind of thing. You're like, hey, this guy stopped and let me into traffic, and so I'll stop and so I'll show them that I'm good too, and I'll let someone else into traffic, and pretty soon everybody's letting everybody into traffic. Well, and the other way is just the same.
I think they do that because they want to maintain that feeling.
Exactly.
Okay, it's not just that, well, I'm going to show people I'm good too. It's like, no, I want to hold this feeling, and in order to hold the feeling, you know internally that you must follow forth with an action.
Right.
Okay? It's like doing good. It's not enough to say that you're good, right, or you choose good. It's doing it. It's perpetuating that feel.
The feels.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The language speaks. It's the feels.
Feels.
But this is what I mean. So people want to classify it as, okay, these are negative, these are bad, we're vengeful souls or whatever. It's like, no, understand that you as a soul, this is your mechanism. Whatever it is that you're embracing, if you are embracing the feels and trying to put that out into the world, people they respond to you. They have this big smile on your face, and then they could internally pick up,
yes,
that there is a lot of light there, a lot of grace there, a lot of this person is enjoying life, and they automatically, there's something that just pops right in. It's like speaking to kids, and you're in that state of hi, good to see you, and they just look at you, yo, I'm here too, and they just smile right back at you. It's just, that's it.
Right. And that's a perfect example of the way karma works. And really, it's a subtle, at the lowest level, it's really a perfect example of how humans work. Because when you get the feels, you can't just keep the feels. You have to give the feels back out. Otherwise the feels don't feel as good anymore. I mean, we're using this silly language, but in fact, when somebody does something good for you, you in some strange way feel obligated to do something good again. That's how you keep the feels. You keep it rolling. It's like the ball starts rolling.
It's resonance.
Resonance, exactly.
It's the theory of resonance, where one frequency starts and then it begins at another point, say in the room, it begins to resonate at that same frequency. And in order to perpetuate it, you've got to continue with that resonance. So acting through that, it's choosing, it's understanding that you get to choose at what resonance you're going to be at. And part of the Eastern discipline is getting you to recognize that habitually you choose the lower, you choose the negative. Habitually, that's where you're going. And you must consciously say, oh, wait a minute, there it is. There
right.
it is.
Yes. That's the becoming aware. And that's a word that you hear a lot in Eastern disciplines, is awareness. And it's not just, hey, look, there's stuff around me. No, it's internal awareness.
When you have come to that point and recognize that the frequency that you're holding is that negative frequency.
Right. But the interesting thing, Margaret, is they're not trying to make it pejorative. They're not saying, well, you're negative and that's bad. What they're trying to say is you're negative, be aware, and then change. So it doesn't have the... Go ahead.
For your own good.
For your own good.
For your own good. Understand that this is being brought upon you.
Brought upon by you. Right.
Right. You're that you come into a situation that's negative. It may not be of your own choosing or working, not by your own, but you can choose where you go from there.
Exactly.
And that's the wonderful power of choice, that free will that you have. You can choose. Now, it's not easy.
No.
I'll be the first one to say that. It is not easy.
No, in fact, that's the biggest challenge is, and I think, again, just to reiterate the point, you're never given the choice of what happens or what situation you're in, but you're always given the choice of how you react to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have full control over your reaction to a situation. And so that's the sort of the karma moment, the karma second, the karma instant is being aware that you have a choice, being aware that you may be habitually choosing the negative, and then in the instant of choice, because it isn't like this long deliberative process, it's I will not choose the negative. I will choose a different path. That's where your karmic switch, where you get to turn one way or the other. And to the extent, that's the discipline. If to the extent that you become adept at that, I would rather prosecute that your happiness is right there. To the extent that you choose to be happy and choose to do sort of positive reactions to what could be negative situations, is the degree to that you will actually be happy and get positive back, even out of what would look like a very negative situation. So it's a great power. It's our big superpower.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God, it is.
It's our whole superpower to be able to choose what we will do when something comes up to us that gives us the choice to do a negative or positive. It isn't whether.
Now,
go ahead.
I'm going to bring up our own experience with this because when you listen to it, it sounds good because we're in the realm of thinking. But when our son Christopher was diagnosed with cancer, and we had to go through these extreme processes. We had to go through transplant, bone marrow transplant. You had, on a moment-to-moment basis, every opportunity to be negative. The doctors, their duty is to give you everything that can possibly go wrong in whatever process you're going through to try to cure this child. So you got negatives surrounding you 24/7, and it's clinical. Okay, clinical negative. This is your possibility.
Right.
And in that moment, you could choose to just go right down the tubes and lament and fall in a basket and say, okay, I can handle this. It's too much. So you have that point of choice. And what really motivated all the parents, most of the parents, at least I have to say most of the parents, is the fact that your child, your baby, is looking back at you and saying, okay, what do we have to do, Mom?
And that's also a great example. Obviously this is not something that everyone goes through, and thank God that they don't. But in any situation, because there are zero lives that don't have the bad feels. We all have the bad feels in our lives. Whether it's as horrible a situation as having your child diagnosed with cancer, or as something as simple as just, an everyday kind of negative, something bad happens at work or whatever. And you just have that, we all know when we have that moment, we're given, it's very definitive. There's a choice. Somebody says something to you. Your child has cancer, or you just get fired, or something, something bad hits you right between the eyes, bam, and you say, well, I can go this way or that way. I have the ability to make this, oh, it's always this way, everything's always horrible, blah, blah, or choose the path of speaking at different resonance, of resonating at a higher frequency, at a positive frequency, and saying, I don't know what to do, but we will do something. We will, we will take hope. We will take courage. We will fight. We'll find a way to make this better, regardless, and we'll look to the positive and not, in essence, despair. So that choice, unfortunately, has to be made over and over and over and over and over again. But to the extent that you realize two things, that you don't control what happens to you, you do control how you react to it, and you can practice choosing the positive until it becomes more habitual than choosing the negative, because it is a practice sort of thing, To the extent that you do these things, and it's not Pollyanna, it's like, oh, everything's always wonderful all the time. No, it's not. It's really, really horrible sometimes, but you still choose to say it's not going to be horrible forever, that bad things happen to good people, and that's something you can't control, that you can control how you react to it.
The one thing you always acknowledge is that things change. Okay? You know that things change. That is a truth. So you don't project forward on what could possibly be, because that usually uses up what little energy you might have to help and be a positive influence in that very negative situation.
In the moment.
To be in the moment, because you're. What I'm trying to say is that it is the love that rises up, that provides the energy and the courage for you to stay your course on being positive for the sake of the one you love. You may want to fall into a basket. You may want to just rant and rave and whatever. So what good is that going to do for your little one?
Or for you?
Well, you can go and vent somewhere at another point without having the one you love as an audience, because you have to get it all out. But you can come back and realize that I'm still choosing the path that has possibilities. Hope for healing.
And even and this is a situation again where hopefully very few people experience, but yet in every situation there's almost always, when something happens, and it's an event. It's not just I stubbed my toe. It's some event which is significant. It has a significance to you or to those of you that you love, and you are given that choice. Now, karma is the word people use, but karma has to do with sort of the return, the whole cycle of the choice. But it is more along the line of choosing the frequency that you will emit into the situation. So you have that choice all the time. Now, the fact that emitting the frequency that that one that you choose being a positive one gives the resonance back of positivity is the benefit. It's the reward. It's the hey, this is the positive reinforcement, to use a phrase, of your taking this situation which you couldn't control and have no idea how it happened and making it more positive, a little bit more positive, and then feeling the resonance coming back. Because at the end of the day, like we said just a moment ago, that's your superpower. That's your ability to exercise your free will in that situation. You don't get to choose what happens or when it happens or how it happens. You get to choose how you react and what you say.
And the choice, its foundation, is in the I am, because you choose who you are in that moment.
Mm.
I am hopeful. I am positive. I am love.
Exactly. And I am is a wonderful phrase to bring up here because in case anyone's read, like, you know, their Bible once in a while, I am is the word that God chose for himself. Now why? Well, it's a kind of cryptic, and he's God and he gets to do whatever he wants, right? You know, hey, I am who I am, and you aren't going to do anything about it because who are you? But the I am is a verb of being. It really is I am always. I am eternal. I am all. But it's you are, we are all that eternal moment. The I am. Choosing who you are in the moment is the eternal moment. The eternal moment is always, you know.
And that is your superpower.
And that's your superpower. You should have a shirt made up and said, I am. Sucker.
No. No. I am. But it's understanding that as a human being, you can always come back to this.
Yep.
And choose. When you choose, you are making a statement of who you are and what you hold. And we apparently have come to the fullness of our hour.
So I am Michael Lyons.
And I am Margaret.
And she is very positive.
And thank you for listening.